All right, so as I mentioned, the topic today is looking at a UniPhi configuration from a client-side project management perspective. I'm going to start off on the portfolio summary screen. I'm logged in as a system administrator. So some of the views you see today, you may not have in your own access, but it's good to be aware of what's possible from an administrative perspective. So you can then go to that administrator and ask them for assistance and tweaking your own deployment. And starting off in this particular part of the system, I just wanted to sort of do a refresher on the sort of structure, parent-child relationships that you can set up in UniPhi, and extra pieces of metadata that you can attach to that as well, and some of the configurations that other clients have used with this relationship. So in this fictitious deployment, as I scroll down this drop-down list, you'll see that some are just straight projects. They've got no children sitting underneath them, and others are configured to do some funky stuff. So for example, this is managing a head contract, revenue contract, and then subcontract relationships, and managing the procurement elements of those relationships. So a whole series of different child projects to assist with that. So that's one example of how things are being done. Others, people have been wanting to track. Now, there's a lifecycle feature for each project anyway, but they've wanted to track discretely each component of a project's development through its lifecycle, and they've done that through parent-child. Often we'll have an asset, and that'll have projects within the asset. So this is a commercial building with different projects going on. A lot of property development will have stages, and so some of them will overlap. So you'll have construction in stage one with detailed design in stage two, and you'll be tracking those, but rolling up into a program of projects. Often you'll do retail fit outs across a whole range, a flammable cladding program demonstrated here. Well done clicking on the link mark. In retirement aged care facilities in stages, et cetera, et cetera. Infrastructure projects with sections of the road being tracked independently, but still rolling up into a project, and so on and so forth. So have a think about that, see what sort of types of projects you're running and whether that is of relevance to you. And when you're looking at that, mainly what you're saying is you want to isolate a piece of information, but I also want to consolidate it into a program of works or a portfolio of projects. In addition to that hierarchy, you also have the ability to tag projects with unlimited pieces of metadata, as I call it, data that describes the project. So this is a ledger project in Saudi Arabia by the looks of it. And so you get to create these fields. There's some standard fields that come out of the box that you're able to filter on within the application itself. So if I wanted to see all new build greenfield projects, I could click that and apply, and that filter gets applied, and I get a subset of my projects down here, which again, if I go to any of the cost modules and time modules, I will just get that portfolio. And in some views, that'll be an aggregated view. Sometimes it'll be a sort of row by row project view of that information. Now, equally, what you can do is create your own lists and apply those as custom fields to projects, and also not just projects, but any module within the application has its own custom field capability at various levels within that module. And then within newish features of UniPhi, you can add that information into these views. You can have multiple views of that information, and you can add them into an existing view. And so if I click this little icon here, what you'll see is options of information that I can add into the table, and one of them being custom fields. And you can see in this particular deployment, we have a lot of different custom fields that we've used for a lot of different reasons. Some of those will be lists, for example, safety list. And if I put that into the table, into this particular screen, hit save, hit the little green here. I've now got that list. You can see too many columns here now to view all on the one page. I'll shrink that a little bit. And equally within these tables, we can now filter on that. So you can see here that safety list hasn't been selected for any projects, which takes me in a nice segue to my next bit. So often you'll change strategies, you'll change ideas, and within that, you will want to update these particular pieces of metadata. Now, that can be done via an import, and the first step to doing that is to run reporting services report. There's 4 reporting platforms in UniPhi. We're going to look at all 4. This one that we were just looking at is reporting platform number 1. We call them embedded dashboards. Then we have our reporting services reports, which have this sub-navigation of all the different types. And if I go to program, basically all of these reports should include multiple projects within them. So if I come down to the project summary export, it's going to create a flat table of projects and their metadata, including custom field lists. And that's the current data set, which I can export to Excel. And then what I'm able to do is if I've changed this to be residential, affordable housing or whatever, I've changed it to something else. Oops, if I edit the spreadsheet correctly. I will have had to have set up that list in UniPhi in the admin, but that's not really what this is about. Main thing is about the fact that this metadata can be updated quite quickly by copying the table in Excel, which I've just done there. You can see they've got the little dotty bits around it. Coming back into UniPhi's summary screen and clicking the import icon. So you'll see this icon frequently in the system. That's importing data from an external source. And you can see that I can import a whole range of things, including custom fields that have been classified into categories or haven't been, if I tick that as well. Cost information or role-based information. And when I paste that into here, what it's going to do is map the field names and it will update on this ID. And so it won't create, you can actually create projects with this methodology as well, but I'm looking to update the sector from, project residential to something else. And I would have gone through all of these and updated it. I could have also updated custom fields. So if that's a custom field, you'll see the custom field mappings come down here, and I'd select the relevant list custom field that relates to, and it'll update that information as well. There's a validation step that I'd recommend you do. If you click this little step here, it'll tell me that first row that I changed isn't correct because it doesn't exist. So I hover on it and it says something else doesn't exist as a name in the sector. So you've got a lot of quality control around here. You can't really mess it up. And then save, and all of that data is updated. So that's just a really short, quick tip. Possibly not something you're going to do in the client-side PM role, but often when you're trying to create WBSs or portfolio structures or program of works, and your client comes back to you and says, oh, I need to classify that into some subset that you haven't got in UniPhi, instead of having to go into every single subset project and select the correct filter, it's possible to actually dump that data to Excel, update it in Excel quicker, and then import it back in. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Now we're going to jump into the actual sort of day-to-day life of a person using UniPhi in a client-side PM role. So to set the scene here, what I'm talking about, and I'm sure everyone on the call understands it, but just so I sort of make sure that we're all on the same wavelength, you're an intermediary between a series of contractor or consultants working to build something and the client who's paying for all of that. So you're facilitating on behalf of that client the construction of something, and potentially administering the terms of a contract with those consultants and contractors, and managing that information, and then reporting that back into that client, which creates some unique issues. I mean, UniPhi was originally designed to have everyone on the platform, and we now do have quite a few clients of construction services onboarding their client-side PM into the platform to manage their own projects. So a lot of the client-side PMs will now be collaborating within the tool. So some of these PDF and Excel extracts that you need to do to get information out to third parties is less of an issue, which is fantastic. But obviously that's only a subset of your projects, and there'll be plenty of projects where you're trying to deliver that information to a third party that won't have access to the system. So we're going to look at some of the tips and tricks that all of our clients who are client-side PMs have come to us and worked through us with, and share that with the broader user group in today's webinar. Now, the first one, if you're going to get, if we set the scene of what maybe our design goal was for client-side PMs in this, it was to be able to provide tools to do the day-to-day that then enables you to automatically reduce time on, not eliminate, but reduce time on progress reporting. You really need the client to access the system to eliminate the need for progress reporting. They can then consume on demand those reports. But typically, when that's not the case, there's still going to be some hacking and slashing to get a PCG report out, for example. But if we could reduce the time that takes and improve the quality of the information because there's no transpose errors coming out of that, that's really what our design goal is. So most of what I'm going to be doing here is, showing you the day-to-day elements that people use, but also like the more you expand that into other areas of what you're doing in client-side PM, the more chance you have for reducing that progress meeting, progress reporting type onerous task that you have to do with regards to your projects. So the first one I'm going to sort of present to you on that is our Outlook add-in. In Australia and New Zealand, our clients mostly still work within an Office 365 environment. In the US, it's a bit of a shift. We've got quite a few using Gmail and other clients, so it's not as obvious then. But for Outlook users, so assuming you're an Outlook user, you can add into the Outlook interface, both web access interface and the client access interface, a Outlook add-in that is displayed here as Save to UniPhi. And so when you're viewing an email, which I am here, and you click the Save to UniPhi, you'll get these menu options to log that email into UniPhi. To get this add-in, you have to go to the Microsoft Marketplace. So we had to jump through a bunch of hoops with Microsoft. And sorry, I was just reading a message here, but yeah, anyway, so they then store that add-in for you to add. So if I click this All Apps, and I click the little Add Apps down the bottom here, you'll get a pop-up where you can then search for UniPhi. And then if you click on that UniPhi for Outlook, it'll pop up again. And instead of saying open, because I've already got it installed, it'll say add. And if you click that, that'll install the add-in into your Outlook environment. Now, there could be a couple of, well, one caveat mainly from that, you might not, your inhibitors of technology might not allow you to do that. And in which case you'll need to go and raise a ticket with the inhibitors and campaign and cajole and maybe take to lunch, and you might be able to get that add-in added. To me, it's a lifesaver. I try to have as little emails as possible in my inbox, and I just farm them out to our own UniPhi deployment so that other people are aware of it and can resolve the issues that I'm incapable of doing, which is a lot, and then move on. And so I would strongly recommend that you get that add-in into your system so that when people are emailing you correspondence around a project, you're able to log those into the system. So here's one. Here, I'm going to log it as a new issue into a New Zealand high school. And it takes the subject of the email and plugs it in as the issue description. You can edit that if you wish. There should be thought gone into the classification of issues. You can see workplace health and safety, variations time, or if you don't like WS, call it safety. Various classifications that you might chuck this into. And also assigning it, this is where you can get it off your plate if you like and be able to have someone else worry about it. You then need to use some of the reports I'm going to show you lately to issue out those to these people if they don't have access to UniPhi, but that's still what you'd be doing now with an Excel register, most likely, to track this stuff. Now, with regards to the due date, you can select when you're expecting this thing to be resolved, or another thing that you might look to do is to create, and this could be contractually related. So we've got, for example, a lot of NEC-related projects we're pitching to into the UK at the moment, where we've developed standard NEC responses for early warnings or compensation events and things that are related to that contract, where they have a certain number of days from the raising of an early warning to respond, to set up a workshop, to then do something else and do something else. And it sets up all of those actions automatically for you. So these are workflows that are configured into the system. If I select that one, it'll automatically generate actions with due dates and assignments for those in accordance with the contract that you're configuring the system for. And so that's now been logged into UniPhi. I haven't gone into UniPhi, I don't need to. I can then go to the next email or make a phone call, whatever it is, and continue on with my day. If I did want to manage that issue further and add further actions or another comment or something like that, you've got the link directly to the issue. So I can click on that now. It takes me into this construction demonstration system. These are the 3 actions that it generated based off this workflow. It assigned 2 to me, and the other one wasn't filled because there's no one in the role. So it's quite important to configure your project team, which we'll go to in a moment, The due dates have been set based on the contractual terms, and the email's been logged in the system for follow up. And as you start to do work, you'll either log it directly into the system yourself, or you'll append the next email. So if I come back into this email, I can click here, click Save to UniPhi, which I've done a million times, so it comes up already done, but append to issue, and then select the issue that I did before, and it'll then append that email to that issue, and so on and so forth. So I keep doing that. I get this history of the issue, and we're going to come back to this issue later on in the demonstration, how I can leverage that into a number of different things. So I would say that that's, to me, the engine room of project management is solving issues as they come up, problem solving, or facilitating others to problem solve and resolve issues. That could form the meeting minutes and the meeting agenda of PCG meetings. We have some client-side PMs doing that. Or it could just be part of the daily progress of what you're doing when you're managing your register. So if I click the little up arrow here, you can then see all of that information across that project on a daily basis. Another addition that we've added is the ability to generate documentation contextual to the part of the system that you're in. So if I click that document now, it would generate any document template that has links to issues that I can issue out to people to review in a PDF form, so that they can follow up on that. You'll find that in the risk system as well. If you wanted to send out a risk register, that little document icon is there, and it's been in the contracts module for quite some time. So you'll see it when I get into the contracts administration elements as well. So that, I would also say, like, one last pitch on that. And look, it's up to you. You pay the same subscription whether you're using that or just the contract admin and doing certified progress claims. But to me, it is a true lifesaver. And you can see how the solution is changing dynamically as I change this screen. There's now no menu up the top. I've got a big fat hamburger, which I can put my thumb on my mobile phone, and it'll create the modules on the side, and which I can then browse around in. So even if you're on site or you're traveling to work or whatever it is, you can actually do a lot of this updating on your phone. There's also native apps that you could use to do that. I prefer to use the web interface. It's a little bit cleaner and easier. And there's also options for looking at other things in the web interface that aren't available on the on-site app. But yeah, just as an awareness thing, it does sort of scale to a mobile phone view and then back out again if you're using it on laptop to get a better view and get all the images and the reports and all of that stuff happening. That's my sales pitch to get you guys to drive this. We're going to see what we can do with these issues further along in the presentation. Similarly with risks, a lot of the time people will be managing risks outside of UniPhi. They'll be doing risk workshops where they're dumping risks into a register, Excel register. So again, I would recommend exploring the project risk export, similar to the project summary export. If I go to my One Hunger School again, export that to Excel. This might even not exist at first. You could just have your initial risk workshop where you've dumped all these risks into the system, into the spreadsheet. But again, you can then update information in here and then just quickly copy paste that information back into the UniPhi risk register. So I'm in the risks, and then you'll start to get this risk trending and risk reporting information that you will see when I get to the reporting bit. So there's the little import icon again. Again, you have some options of bringing in custom fields, which if they're classified, that means it's all of the risk custom fields linked to safety. These are just generic risk custom fields you've created. And again, because you've got the risk ID, if you select that, you can then update risks rather than create new ones. This will generate new risks. If I was to bring it in, you should validate, and it'll say one couldn't. You hover on it and say why. That's because we've changed the escalation rating, so we'd need to go and update that particular risk. But other than that, all the other 13 would come in. I'd hit save, and you'd now have your risk register in the system. So as I said, the more data you get into here, when I get to the reporting, the more data that's going to be able to be aggregated and escalated to the client and to the contractor as needs. There was one thing I missed on the issues that's worth mentioning as well. You'll see over here, escalated to. It's worth having a think about that structure, and then You can see that this one hasn't been escalated, so it won't go into the PCG reporting. And if you need to have it in the reporting, you can just drill in and tag that with a PCG tag, and that will then bring that into the PCG reportings automatically, rather than having to go through it and tick off which ones you want to come in. Okay, so we're done issues, we're done risks. We're now going to get into the area where most people have been living and show some of the newish features, mainly around notices and issuing out documentation, trying to streamline some of the progress claiming elements of the system. So I go into the contracts module. I'm in my one school here. I've got 2 consultant contracts and a main works. Obviously, you will have a lot more. Again, you can create new views here, which is relatively new, and create additional fields that you might want into those views. So both in terms of charts and columns here. So have a play around that with that. There's some interesting stuff around URLs that some of our more purchasing businesses use to track delivery and things like that. But we're administering a contract as a client-side PM here. So these are all project cost chart of account contracts. And I'm just going to look at our main works contract for now. So again, we mentioned earlier the document thing. So this is quite important. It's contextualized. If I just wanted to put an instruction out to the contractor, I would go to the value screen and the original contract and launch that from there, and it will give me all my instruction notices. But as I scroll down, I've also got my variations. And so if I think about that issue I logged earlier, has now led to a variation. When it first came in, we weren't sure that it was going to lead to a variation. What I would want to do is document that variation now for whatever it is. If you can see, we actually did that once before up here, so I'll just copy that text, but I'm going to put it into this one. And then just going across the columns here and having a think about what they mean. The submitted value, you would have gone out to the put out a variation price request to the contractor. They would have responded. That's the value of what they responded. You have then shown your great negotiating skills and have screwed that contractor down to $45,000. So it's still possible, but you're about to approve it at $45,000. You've assigned it to the lump sum code, which is the control account for the main works contract. It's now over budget, but you could potentially fund that yourself out of construction contingency if you've got enough left. And by selecting that, that will do the budget sort of transfer draw, the forecast to complete drawdown, basically. So that depends on if you're managing the cost reporting on this as well. If you are, you have that capability to use UniPhi to assist in the balancing of the budget from that perspective. So whenever you see a number in brackets, that means that you're over budget. If you've got a number not in brackets, that's how much you've got left. And then probably more importantly, I think, for the client-side PM, is you go to this comment link, and you link the issues that you've been logging on a daily basis to this particular variation. So, that then brings in all of the different emails that have been raised around that particular topic over time. And that'll then appear not just against this variation, but also against the issue itself. So if I go into the issue itself, you've got any other variations on other contracts that you've allocated this issue to as well. You've got your notice. I haven't generated one as an example yet, but we've done that one a little while ago, 3 years, and any other file attachments. So you've got this integration between those 2 elements that you can then, depending on what part of the system, link to and move between to get an understanding of what's actually going on this contract. So going back to that contract, I just want to issue a notice and have a little bit of a chat about the notices on variations. And then I'm going to look at progress claims, which is more important around the notifications and notices. But let's just look at the variation notice first. Firstly, so many different requirements around this. And so there's quite a sort of need to understand how the template system works, which is outside the scope of this presentation, but worth knowing it has capability to be adjusted. So in the configuration of this particular template called variation order, we have set roles and responsibilities based off delegation. Not necessary. You can just have it that the person creating the variation signs it off. We've also created a naming convention so that the document name doesn't actually get generated manually. It gets generated automatically based on some rules. So that can be configured, again, not by us, it's by your system admin person. And then we have these template controls that populate the information. And it's this scope change cultural artifact is the one that I'm approving. Anything that doesn't have a tick box means it's already had a variation order document approval to it. And so we don't need to do it again. This is the one that hasn't. This is the one we're approving today. We give it a date. And then what you could do is you can see that that's got an I there. You could say, I don't want this information that UniPhi creates automatically as a standard layout to be in there. There is the ability to change these columns in the template, and you can see that the end user can even say, I don't really want that. I want this to be called control accounts, and you have some, quite a little bit of flexibility around that. And we're constantly trying to give you more flexibility. It's our challenge to give you that flexibility to get these outcomes and outputs the way you want. And then the rest of the template is really up to you as well. And each company will have a different view on this and a different outcome. If you wanted to list all of the variations that are pending or approved on this project and this contract, you can do that. You can even do it for all. And that's one way of getting the registers back out. Again, you have the ability to add extra columns that may not be in this standard into this as you go, and so on and so forth. If I didn't want this one there, I can literally just hide it and it now won't be in the output. I'm going to keep it open for now. I think there's one thing that comes out of this output that's pretty cool. Again, linking it to that key issue so that the documentation is coming back into the key issue is quite important. Therefore, when you go into the issue, the variation instruction will be there. Then you've got the ability to create boilerplate text. And this is drawn in a whole bunch of information automatically, the contract commencement date, the clause that we're operating this variation order under, all of that is being populated dynamically. And then you have the ability to say, whatever it is, the instruction is to the contractor. Whether you would have an initial, I doubt that. I not have that step in mind, because you can also just keep going in here and keep writing as much as you like. And equally, insert pictures, whatever you like into that step. But you might also have the need, and you can see its default is unhidden, but you just tick that, it becomes unhidden. Sorry, its default was hidden. You might have the need to attach some other documentation, which you can do here, and then that will go out with the notice as well. So then you will need to get that signed off, which, as I said, could be done by the document creator if you've configured it that way. And then you would email it out of the system to whoever you're going to send it to. I'm going to come back to what this means. This is new, and there's some interesting stuff here. It's going to send the document as a PDF attachment. It's going to use the letterhead style sheet, and it'll include any document and comments and transmittals. What that means is that at the bottom of this document, when you view it in UniPhi, you can actually write comments. So if anyone's written any comments down the bottom here, that can also go out as the document if you've got that comments and signatures ticked. There's also a whole bunch of stuff around where the signature gets displayed, and there's some enhancements coming on that as well. So you can actually have the signatures display elsewhere in the document if you want. That's in the configuration of the template as well. And you can say, I actually don't want this variation order number to display at all, and all this other stuff. But if you do display our standard contract sum, one of the benefits to UniPhi is the fact that it's calculating the adjusted contract sum. It's calculating the previously claimed value for you automatically when you're doing the certificates for progress claims, and hence there's less likely to be copy paste errors or Excel errors when generating this information. All right, so that becomes a bit of a rinse and repeat in all parts of contract administration. What changes is the document type. Now, one of the hardest ones for us to nail for clients is the progress claim certificate being 100% what they want. The first one I'm going to talk about is consultants. So where you're a client-side PM and you're managing multiple consultants, you will need to issue out a summary list of all the consultants to pay. And so there's a new feature around that if I was to go to my dashboards, I would still go into each of the consultants' contracts and put in the invoiced amount. There is a trick to get to this invoice screen as well, which I'll show you in a moment. But you can see that this contract is now in post-contract, and the architect's charging $5,000 a month, and there's 1 month that they've claimed, so we put 1 month in, so that this claim is $5,000. We go and do that to all of the to all of the consultants, and we create the document again, And there's now, you can see this template list has totally changed. It's just looking at progress payment certificates that exist in your deployment. And there's a new one called progress claim cover sheet, which is a new template control that will list all of the invoices or a select number, untick those two. So it's got architect and project manager now. And it'll display how much you're claiming. Then you can go in and on bulk select the invoice dates, and you don't have to go and do that into every single document. You're just doing it into this screen here. So you might have 50 consultants to approve. You go and you put in the claim value, you create this document, there's 50 there, you go in and do this list. You can then have a file upload that uploads all their invoices into it. I'm going to show you a PDF combined capability subsequent to this. And then also you can use template variables and other things to populate some summary text. But if you then upload all of those invoices sent to you, when I show you the PDF combined, they will then just show as invoices in one PDF document, not as links, which was traditionally how it would have been displayed. And so again, a time saver, hopefully, for you generating those consultant claims and issuing that back to the client. However, when we get to the construction contract, it's a little bit more complex. So if I come back here, and it really just depends on the contract that you're administering, what needs to go into that, and what keywords and look and feel and all the rest of it that you need. So in the invoice of the main contract, there's some tools there as well. Obviously, you're claiming against the original contract sum, you're claiming against variations, you're claiming against retention, etc. And they'll do calculated retention for you. For most Australian contracts, we're now adding in some additional methodologies for calculating retention. Then you've got what stage am I at? And so different contracts will have different arrangements where you might be issuing out a progress payment recommendation. The contractor creates their invoice, you then create a certificate. So on the first assessment, you don't want to sign off the previously claimed. You don't want the previously claimed being updated. So you can use an assessment view and a certificate or a progress payment recommendation that doesn't finalize the claim. It won't move the amount complete to the previously claimed when signed off. So that's something worth knowing. What it'll also enable you to do is to put in reasons that you have changed what you've assessed compared to what the contractor is claiming. And so when you send that to the contractor, there'll be a timeline for them to be able to argue the point around that. You can then update it if they win, et cetera, work through that process, finalize your claim, and then go to the certificate stage where you're issuing the certificate to the client to actually pay the bill. So when you're doing that, again, you're using this link to the document system. And you've got these here. And this time I'm going to use certified progress claim, this template. Again, you can see that there's roles that you can have. There's no delegations here about value, just roles that need to sign it off. Again, the name's being generated automatically. The steps are going to be different again. And this is the sort of main summary step that this is an incredibly complex control. The amount of stuff that you can do in this control is nuts. But equally, what a lot of people are doing now, it's needed. It needs to be there so the document knows all of the values. So you can customize what these rows say. You can hide a lot of them. You can have this detail not be displayed. For example, if I say hide detail, there's now no detail there because you might want it displayed elsewhere, or you might not want it displayed at all, so on and so forth. There's a lot of customization that you can make to this to try and get it right. And a lot of the time people are just saying, you know what, you still haven't got it right for me, UniPhi. I'm just hiding that. And then they're going to the progress payment certificate step. You still need to put the data in. And then they're going to the progress payment certificate step and having that populate everything that they want in the format that they want it, laid out how they want it with tables and all the rest of it to be exactly how they want it. Any reference to contractual terms and all the rest of it coming through there. So that's the third option, if you like. There's a first option is to mess around with this screen and try and get it to be how you want it. The second option is to have this screen plus what we've got now is called an appendix. And so you can display all of that detail that you've got in an appendix, which can be displayed anywhere in the document. And then the third one is to create your own boilerplate text using what we call template variables to automatically populate the content based on the information that's in the certificate. And there's some additional capability coming around that, like literally next week, converting numbers to words so that the statement says $115,442 in words and 70 cents in words. All this really important stuff that makes the world go around. And that's going to be there for those who need it to comply with their contract, including some also stuff around due dates as well, automatically coming in. So you can put when the thing was received, when it was reviewed, if it's a progress payment recommendation, when the contractor has to respond to the differences that you've shown. Again, going back to this certificate and getting the detail back in again, what columns are displayed here are, again, optional and configurable. So we haven't got in here the reason for a difference between the contractor value and that's configurable. You can put that in. And then, of course, this is the PDF combined bit. What I can do is if I just drag actually, I'll do it through here. I think that'll take her the right. Yeah, I'm just going to select this PDF. So that could be the builder's invoice, or the PDF might have been put into the certificate step for the builder's invoice. But there might also be some other documentation to validate this claim. And if you upload it as a PDF, and then instead of emailing it out of UniPhi, you would download it as a combined PDF. So when I go into the view document screen first, so I've got to click that one first. When I click PDF, there's now this plus PDF button. And when I click that, what it does is it generates the UniPhi PDF content, but it also inserts the PDF document as a document. And so that was the PDF that I uploaded, and it's now combined with the UniPhi certificate for then that PDF being emailed out of your own inbox to the client for them to pay the bill. Then it becomes the same process for EOTs and for any other thing that you want to communicate out about UniPhi. And from there, what you get as a benefit is you can go to the registers of a contract, and it'll display everything that you've ever communicated as a standard instruction, whether it being a variation, whether it being a progress claim, whether it being an EOT, or whether it being some other instruction that you've issued that didn't have a relationship with the finalized EOT. So those progress claim recommendations would appear here rather than the progress claim certificates that are up here, but also just straight out instruction notices that relate to that contract. Equally, if you're logging issues against the contract and you go to correspondence, you'll also be able to see issues that have come in. So that's the issue that related to the original email that I logged in. And you can then filter that down by category or show me the emails. And these are the emails that have been logged. Show me the comments with those issues. Click on those and you get into that issue and you can see the correspondence and everything else again. So that's the sort of next phase benefit you get from dumping all of that stuff into the system. Is anyone who comes in while you're away, or if you happen to leave the business, or you inherit someone else's job that they've been using UniPhi, and hopefully you get all of the information that you need to manage that and to know where things are at in terms of the progress of contracts on the project. So getting data out of the system, those registers you can get as documents, like what I showed you when we generated the variation. There was a variation register there, or you can go to the reports module again and run those documents as registers, both in program and project. There'll be EOT registers, there'll be variation registers, and whenever you run those, you can run them out to Excel and you can send those to people for them to respond to and action. All right, so now we're going to get to the last part of this webinar, and that's about getting the different types of reports out of the system to reduce the time taken to compile information back to the client, integrated information about how the project's going. And the first one I'm going to show you is a PCG template. So again, the template can be configured quite heavily, but I'm just going to show you the one that's in this presentation. So I'm now launching this from the documents module in the Onongo High School project. So now I get all of the templates that exist in this particular deployment. I'm going down to the PCG report. Again, you can see the name's going to be dynamically created. I've got some controls about needing the project manager to sign off this report. And I've got a totally different set of steps that you would have seen from the notices for progress claims and everything else. This is an auto number generator that's generating which PCG report it is. This is number 14. Version control around that. So if I edit this document multiple times, it'll say who did it and when. Who I need to send it to. Now I'm in here, so I'm going to select myself in a moment, so that'll be useful. And then we've got all these different types of controls. So this is milestones coming out of the time module. And again, you can play around with what information comes into that. Issues, again, so you're getting this benefit of escalated to PCG issues that you want to display to the client in this report. And again, with issues and risks, the ability to then add in different fields as you see fit to fit your requirement. Again, using the escalated to feature to get just the ones you want to display automatically, because this could be a 100 list risk register. And some of the cool stuff that we've added in here, so you still got the ability to change these descriptions, but also the comments. So if people are adding comments to risks and issues, you can actually get them into your PCG. That took a long time to get that to happen. If you're tracking financials, the financial information will come in. There's a cool feature here not many people know about, that as you do these, you can compare it to the last one. And then this VTF means versus the last forecast. And so what it's doing is, if I just select this 2023 here, for example, you can see that the actual was $5,000 and last forecast, we didn't have any spend there. So there's a $5,000 difference to the last forecast and also to the budget. And so that's just for the month of December. Then we have the year to date. So this is a financial year one. So if you're reporting to a government client, they'll often want financial year focus as well as whole of project. So this is that. You can narrow that down to level 2 if you want and just show the level 2 codes, a whole bunch of other stuff. Development cost is whole of project. So again, it's customizable, what fields you show and what the labels are able to be changed. But you've also got this ability to compare to the last forecast, which I think is pretty nifty. And so when you get over to the end, you've got this variance to what you said last month, which you can then have a rich text box as the next step in the document and explain your life away as to why that's different. Just quickly going through the others, you've got cash flow. You've also got some visuals. This is a cash flow visual, but there's a whole bunch of others that you can add in and play around with. There's a major intent to add to this quite extensively over time, but at the moment, this is 50% width of the page. I might want to make it 100. And I also might want to say, if you look at this cash flow, it's just a cumulative S-curve, but I might want the monthly as well. So if I select both and I update this, I'm now going to get that output. You can see this finishes in April 2023. So I might just say, I'll just show to that point in time and it'll tidy up the graph a little bit. And again, just hit the refresh button. And so now I've got a nice little graph that's going to go into this report as well. You can do different subsets. You can like select a code in the chart of accounts and just give me the construction element only, but show me level 3 or 4. So you can show elements of your budget in a report rather than the whole thing. Approvals coming from issues as well, so on and so forth. Variation registers. So this is the main works register, but you can actually put in like all of them or a subset of the variation registers across different contracts. You can put rich text boxes in where you explain stuff. And don't forget, like if I wanted to, add visuals in there, and let's say, for example, even I liked the cost module visual, I could go in and snip. Let's say I like this contracted donut. Who doesn't like donuts, especially at lunchtime? And just paste that in. And so you can do whatever you like within this rich text box to create the outcome that you want from this PCG. There's just a couple of other little ones I wanted to show out of this. Not many people use the periodic or monthly update feature where you can actually capture anything you like. In this instance, say you're a developer, you're capturing sales, leads, how many were qualified, first inspection sold, and you're just keying that number in. So where that would come from in the one under high school, when you go to the summary, you've got this monthly update section. They're all custom fields. You select the period that's related for, and then you're just typing in the numbers there. And that's saying, okay, that's how many inquiries. Now, that's great for reporting, but there's no real transparency around that. But at least it gets it into the report. So if I now select sort of March 2005, those numbers I just typed in are there now, and it's counting how many have been in this since the project started. And another addition that's new is I can, again, explain my world away in this document here at that table. This WHS is doing the same thing. So it's exactly the same. You're coming in and you'll see there's a WHS category, or a safety category here, sorry, that you're putting in the life-threatening injuries, reportable and minor. However, in my opinion, what's an even better auditable methodology, which is this WHS2, is where it's coming from the issues system. And so in the issues system, you'll have that WHS category. So you can see it there. And when you, if I scroll down to WHS, so this is my WHS register. And when you click on these, or you could add the column into this register, you'll see that there's a type here. And by selecting the type, what this document is doing is looking at how many are in those categories in the period that when they were raised. And so there's actually an audit history. If someone said, what are the 5 minor injuries? I can go to the issue register. If I add in the type there, I'd be able to filter on type and then, say these ones related to minor, et cetera. I think there's multiple types in this, which is why that one didn't come in, but and they're related to different categories. So the system's set up, but that's the goal, is to be able to have some transparency about this aggregated number is my preferred option. But if you don't have that, or you don't want that, you can key it in. And equally with that update, you can actually import it in from a feed that you're getting from other people. So you might be tracking other pieces of information, like, for example, how much renewable energy was installed in a program per month, and you're getting that data from someone else. That information can be picked up through there. So once I've finished all of this, and this is the PDF compilation. So PCG will often have, other reports. So you'll have a construction report given to you by the contractor. You'll have a QS report given to you by the QS. You can add all of those in, and then when I get to the final step here and make it publicly available, and I render this to PDF, if I use the combined PDF, I'm now going to get not just what I put into the system through that interface, as you see here, and if I just reduce that size a bit, I'm also going to get the additional information that I've uploaded, but combined into the QS report and the construction report there. And so even if that's only 80%, you can still obviously download that and hack and slice and add extra stuff into there, or merge this into another report that you might have, and get your report out. And hopefully that means that those first elements in the first 20 steps are generated a lot quicker and with more accurate, no transpose errors coming out when you're doing that financial and time-based, milestone-based reporting. Now, if the client is having their UniPhi deployment and using that, you wouldn't need to do that PCG. They'd get all that information out from the system itself, and they'd probably get it out through dashboards. But equally, what you can do, and these dashboards are Power BI embedded dashboards, so it's the 4th platform. And there's a PCG version here for one project. So even if that's, if you're doing that for a client, you can actually give them access to their version of this, so they can get a login to UniPhi and log in and get access to that report and consume it on demand, basically. And so this is a 2-page report that has similar information to what I was showing in that PDF version, but just aggregated into visuals, etc. And then from there, you can do not just project reporting, but portfolio reporting. So, if I was to look at, in this commercial sample, there'll be a portfolio of projects. So we've got different parent projects, different children projects with their timelines, with their cash flow consolidated, with their escalated issues and risks across the portfolio. And that can then drill down. So you see developer cost manager. If I go to asset management, we'll now look at just the developer projects. So that's the next level down. Right, so I can look at developer and I get their projects with their information, and so different portfolio of assets. And then I can look at a specific project within that, so the Coles Miranda development. And each time I'm getting totally different information, hopefully with the ability then to link into certain information about that. So if I wanted to know what delay in receipt of concept design is all about, again, I should be able to click that link and get the comments and conversations that led to that. Whenever there's a beagle involved, it always gets delayed. There's only one other feature that I can just squeeze in under the belt. I went a bit fast at the end there because I wanted to get to it. But there's a new feature for sharing information where you can get people to actually log into UniPhi without having a paid license. It's called Document View. And so when I email this out, normally it would go as a PDF. So send document as an attachment with the cover sheet style. But what I can do is say send a link to the document. And when I do that, you can see that the filter automatically says you can only send it to licensed users. But in this particular deployment, I'm actually only licensed to the document view license. And so to see that, if I go to the resources page, and I just go to my OneHunger project, here I am here, and I'm the client. When I click on my name, I'm a document view license, right, which is the lowest license you can give someone. It's not, we don't charge for it. And you need to set up a few things, and we have some instructions around that, but they need to be in a role that is document view. So you can see the client is document view. So that means you can collaborate on documents with the client. And you also need to have the documents view status to be document view. Most of the templates have team member, which is one level up. So you'd need to edit that. So we've done that with this template. And so what I'm going to do is go and email this to myself. But I'm emailing it as Joe Bloggs, so I'm logged into the system as Joe Bloggs, so I'm not emailing it as me. Joe Bloggs is support@uniphi.com.au. And so when I email this, you can see that they've now got a link to the document rather than the PDF. I have to copy this link, otherwise it would open up as Joe Bloggs. But what I'm going to do is copy it. You wouldn't need to, they wouldn't need to. They just click on the link. It'd take them into UniPhi, and that is the view they get. I logged in earlier, so it didn't ask me to log in. They'd still need to log in because, that's how we authenticate that they're allowed to see this information. But you can see there's no navigation, right? I can't get to any other part of UniPhi. I'm just seeing the information on screen. They could create their own PDF version of it. That's fine. But they also can view this information and, potentially make their own comments on it around that. And so, collaborating and sharing information is possible. We have a new file repository that does version controlling for design management. I have a client-side PM who said he often gets asked by the client, can you send me this particular drawing? And instead of saying, go to the architect, they're responsible for that, he'll always have the latest versions on his file share and he'll send it to them. So he has to manage that version control himself. You could use UniPhi for that, and then also give them access to download that information if they're asking for a whole suite of drawings that are too large to email and that sort of thing. So there's quite a lot of use cases for this new license. It's worth exploring. It gets me to 12:58. Thanks for all the questions and comments as we went through, guys. Great. I really appreciate all the people who joined the session. Feel free to reach out to your account manager with any questions around any of that stuff, and as some additional training material. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. Hopefully there was some nice pieces of kit in there for you to use. And I'll see you at the next webinar in probably next month.